Okay, so good morning. So this is the second week of the module, and this is the week that we will start our lab sessions in. I have received plenty of emails regarding class moves. I've taken down student numbers here in class of people that want to move. So later on in the end of the session, at the end of the lecture, if you haven't given me your student number, please come to my desk and give me your student number and where you'll be moving from and to. Okay. Otherwise, I will go through this and check the emails as well that I got and make sure that I move everybody around. If I reach a point where one of the classes is completely full, I will stop moving people to it. But I will let you know about it in advance. Okay. So now, today's lecture, we are dealing with installation of the operating system of CentOS. So the idea is that you build the environment in which you will be working for the rest of the teaching block. So in order to do this as safely and conveniently for us as possible, we will be working inside a virtual machine that you will build in this lab sheet. Now, this virtual machine will be running CentOS 7, and it will be built on a VMware hypervisor. We do this because there's more than one student working on its allocated computer, so we cannot have you working on the host itself, obviously. And secondly, because we want you to have root access into this machine, into this computer, something which we could not possibly allow on the physical computer in the lab itself. So I have the installation instructions on the lab sheet. And what I will do today is I will also build it as well on VMware so that you see what the process actually is, so that we make sure that you get everything right, because there are a couple of steps that you definitely need to be very careful about. So VMware should already be installed on your hosts. So once you come in, you will need to start it up and you need to create a new virtual machine. So that new virtual machine, if you say use an installer disk image and you choose the image itself from the ISO that you want to install, VMware will go on and do an unattended installation. So this is error number 1. Okay, you must not do this. You must not let it build whatever it wants. You need to have full control over how the virtual machine is built. So we will sort of trick VMware and we'll say I will install an operating system later. All right. So make sure you select I will install an operating system later and then add the DVD in the advanced settings. So we click next. VMware needs to know what sort of operating system it's hosting. So at this point you need to tell it that it's a Linux and it's a CentOS 7 64-bit version of Linux, because obviously there are lots of flavors of Linux and, well, there are. All right, hit next on this one and then give it a name. So we can name it Prometheus, and make sure you do this at this stage so that all of the files of the virtual machine inside the VMware folder in your root directory are also called Prometheus as well. Otherwise, they will be called CentOS 7 64-bit or whatever, and it will look more generic. So if you ever want to make a backup of this virtual machine, it's a good idea to have it named. And in fact, if you want, after Prometheus, you can include your student number as well, as long as you please don't include any spaces in there. Okay, so it's Prometheus UP 123456. So once you do that, you go to the next bit, which is the hard drive size. So by default, it gives it 20 gigabytes. We need to have 200 gigabytes per Prometheus host. Okay, so this is the machine that you will be working on. You will build lots of virtual machines inside it, so it needs to have plenty of space available. Your hard drives in the lab, I think, have about 2 terabytes of space, so we can have up to 10 student accounts in there. Or this gives you plenty of space to make copies of your virtual machine so that you can keep a backup of it in case something goes wrong. And this is something that I would like you to do. You don't have to do it in every lab session, but you can do it maybe every 2 or 3 lab sessions. You can go into the folder where the virtual machine is saved, where it lives, where the files of the virtual machine live, which is in /root/VMware/Prometheus. You can copy those files into a backup folder and keep them there. If the current virtual machine that you're working on crashes, hard drive dies, whatever, you can just delete it and you can revert back from your backup that you created previous week or earlier on. Okay, please make sure you only keep one backup at a time. All right, let's not fill up our hard drives with backups. right? So 200 gigabytes, it's asking whether to split the hard drive files or not. This instruction is not in the lab sheet. This means that if I haven't included something in the lab sheet, it means that you accept the default setting. You don't change it. All right. So as it is, accept the default setting and move on. And this principle applies to all of the lab sheets that I will give you. All right. If I don't mention it, accept default. Hit next. So now it gives you an overview of what you have created. And here you can go to customize hardware. And you can change memory, CPU, and so on. So because we'll be working in the lab and because we'll be building lots of virtual machines in there, you can choose to use 16 gigabytes of RAM. Your computers have 64 gigabytes of RAM. Okay. Later on, if you see that this is not enough, you can power off your virtual machine and you can take it higher. You can take it all the way up to 56 gigabytes of RAM, essentially. I cannot do this because my laptop only has 24 gigs of RAM, so that's why I'm choosing 16. Okay, so you go for 16 in the lab, but if you see that your your virtual machine is running slow after you've built a few VMs, then you can take it up all the way up to 56 gigabytes if you like. Same principle applies for the CPU cores as well. In the lab, your Xeons have 12 cores, so you can give up to 8 cores in your virtual machine. All right, so start with 4 to begin with, and then if you think that you need more power, give it more power. There is one very important step that you need to make sure that you do. This box, Virtualize Intel VT. So this will pass on the virtualization extensions of the CPU into the virtual machine. This means that you will be able to run virtual machines inside your virtual machine that you're building. Because you're building Prometheus now, inside it you will have a vPrometheus 0, 1, 2, 3. All right, they will not run unless you've checked this box. All right. In Linux, when you're setting it up, when you're here during the installation, during the build, this box will be grayed out. You will not be able to select it. So you need to build the operating system, install everything, finish installing everything, and then power off the virtual machine, then go into the settings of the virtual machine and enable this option. Okay. And there's no other way to do it. I won't do it on mine because my poor laptop doesn't support it. The next thing you need to do is network. So your virtual machine will be bridged. Okay, so your computers in the lab live on subnet 28. So all of the PCs have an address that starts with 148.197, which belongs to the university, and then .28, which belongs to NetLab, the lab that we're working on. The IP addresses, if you were here last year, they've changed now, and they range from 1 to 48. All right, so you might be working on 148.197.28.10. The address that we want you to use for your Prometheus VMs is whatever you have on your computer, which is on a little blue sticker on the bottom left side of your corner of your monitor, plus 50. So if you're working on 10, your Prometheus address must be 60, and so on. Okay, it's very important that you don't use the same IP address as the host. I've already had about 6 students do this, even though I've mentioned exactly the same thing I'm telling you now as well. That's fine. If you do, unknowingly, your virtual machine will work half of the time. And then it will wait for a really long time until any packages that are coming or going in the computer figure out where they need to go. So your system will just lag like crazy. It's not that you will not have internet access. You might get google.com straight away, but it will all be downhill from there on. Okay, so it's a sneaky error, so be careful of that. All right, if your computer is slow, your IP address is wrong. All right, so set this to bridge, and then finally we can go on to the DVD, and you can use an ISO image, and you can tell it to use your CentOS ISO image. You will either find this in your home folder, or you will find it in your global folder on your computers. So once you do that, you're ready to start the installation. So hit finish, it will show up here, and you can click play, and the virtual machine should start. This now means that you've built the hardware side of things for it. So you've configured all of the hardware for your virtual machine. You've told it what operating system you want, you told it what you want it to do, so now it's time to install the operating system inside it. By default, it says test this media and install CentOS 7. You don't need to test the ISO image because it's correct. It's fine. Yes, it's not a DVD that can be scratched and won't work. So this testing process takes a while. So make sure that you select the top option and just click install CentOS 7. Okay, it will do its thing and it will give you some of the installation options that have to do with the operating system itself that we care about. We will customize 3 of the areas of the operating system. We'll customize the partitioning, the software selection, and we'll also customize, we'll change the name of it, we'll give it a proper name. I need to get a faster laptop, eh? So, first things first, language. We are in the UK, hence we have UK keyboards. Mistake number 1. Alright, if you leave it to a US keyboard, the at and the quotation marks will be inverted. So later on when you try to type in commands and put in switches and vertical lines and horizontal lines, things will go wrong. Alright, so UK. So, if you make the mistake and just scroll through this screen without changing anything, you will end up with a wonderful virtual machine that is very fast and very black. Yes, you will only get a command line because it will do by default a minimal install. Alright, so what you want to do is you want to go on the left side of this menu, scroll all the way down to Development and Creative Workstation. Okay, and then you want to have all of the components in this list. So they are alphabetically, so we have compatibility libraries, we have DNS, we have development tools, we have file and storage server, hardware monitoring utilities, network file system, and we have Office, and we have platform development and virtualization hypervisor. Okay, so this is how you do this. If you don't select all of these correctly, there will come a point later on in the teaching block that you will need something and your system will not have it. So it's not going to be the end of the world. You can still yum install it. However, whatever you install will be a newer version because that will be brought over automatically from Red Hat's repositories. So that might be a different version to what I want you to use on the system. Okay, 9 out of 10 times this doesn't cause a conflict, but 1 out of 10 times it does. All right, at which point the solution will be rebuild your Prometheus. So be careful with the software selection. The other thing you need to be very careful about is partitioning. So we do something customized to the way that we partition the hard drive here. So you will need to choose I will configure partitioning, and you need to hit done, and then it will take you to the partitioning details of what you want to do. So at the moment this is a blank hard drive, it has no partitions inside it because it's a brand new virtual machine. So if we click here to create them automatically, this will create the standard partitions for a Linux installation. Okay, the important components are /boot, which holds the kernel of the operating system, the /, which has all of the file system with all of the folders under it, and it has the swap, which is some extra RAM essentially if your system needs to swap, if your system needs to use some more memory than it physically has. Theoretically, you'll never use this, but you never know. And what we also have is a /home directory that has most of the hard drive space. This 140 out of the 200 gigabytes that your hard drive has. Now, normally on a Linux system, you're supposed to log in as a normal user, do whatever it is that you're doing on your daily routine, and then if you ever need elevated privileges, you can SU, switch user, as root administrator, and do all of the administrative tasks that you need to do. In our case, because all of the tasks that you will do will be administrative tasks, we prefer to log in as user root straight away. Okay. It is a test environment, you're in the lab, we're even isolated from the rest of the university outside, so there's really no point in wasting time SUing all the time, and I mean all the time, yes? I've had really hardcore second or third year students that just insisted on doing this, and every time I sat on their computer to help them, they would SU 5 to 6 times. So, if you want to torture yourself, it's fine, but I want you to work as user root. So, the /home directory is the home folder for all the other user accounts, whereas the root directory is in simply /root. We need to have all of the hard drive space available for our root user and none for our home users, for our normal users. Well, we'll have a little bit of space. We'll have the same space essentially, but we'll never use it. Okay. So what we want you to do is I want you to delete the /home partition, go into the /, go into the desired capacity box, and delete everything in there. The next step on the lab sheet says click on the update settings button, and this is a fun thing for me to do, to watch in the lab how people figure out where that button is. The button is hidden down here. Terrible waste of time for you, fun for me, but no. So update settings, that will look at all of the capacity of the virtual machine hardware wise, and it will allocate all of the remaining hard drive space onto the /partition. So now my /partition is 190 gigabytes, so I have all the space available for my root user. If you don't do this, you will build a couple of virtual machines, start working. By the time you build the third virtual machine, your computer will tell you you've run out of disk space. You will call me, and then I will tell you, congratulations, you need to rebuild your computer. There's no other way about it, yes? We have tried with LVM partition in order to resize the partition live and everything else, but it has failed miserably. And when I say we, not just myself, but Sergio and Alex as well are admins. So, bad idea. So, make sure your /partition is 190 gigabytes before you move on from this step. Click done, accept changes, and then we go to network and host name. So all of your computers will be called prometheus.netlab.ee.port.c.uk. All of this means something. Yes, Prometheus because this is the name of your computer, or the prefix as we call it, and then the netlab.ee.port.c.uk is the suffix as we call it, or the surname of the computer. They're all domains and subdomains of where we're working at. NetLab because we're in the lab, so we have a DNS server that's responsible for all of the computers in the lab. Its name is Columbus. Then we have EE for electronic engineering, which is a legacy thing really, but we keep it there for sentimental reasons. So it's all of the computers on the second floor of Anglesey, and we have a DNS server for that on subnet 27 as well. And then port because obviously we're the University of Portsmouth, so everything that's in the computer of Portsmouth has port in it. AC because we're academic, because we belong to Janet, So Janet is the ISP in the UK that provides internet to all its universities. We're not on Virgin Media or anything like that. Yeah. We're a serious country with serious universities. And UK because well, here in the UK. And that's what the tier 1 ISP wants us to have. All right, so the name means something. Make sure you set it correctly on this step so that later when you boot into your virtual machine, it doesn't say root at localhost, it says root at Prometheus on the terminal prompt when you open it. You can also at this point configure your network card. It should find one network card. It should call it ENS33. And you need to go to IPv4 settings, and we want this to be manual. All right. You come here, you need to add a line of addresses and stuff. The reason for this is because you can have binded network cards, so you can have more than one addresses on one interface in Linux. Okay, so I'm going to use my address 148.197.28.50 for my computer, and my netmask is going to be 255.255.255.0. The gateway is going to be 148.197.28.254. You will also need the DNS server, so that's going to be 148.197.28.251, and if you leave a space, 148.197.8.12. This is the Port AC UK server. Okay, this is the university's DNS server. It's always good to have a backup DNS server in case your primary DNS server fails. And seeing as our primary DNS server is inside the lab and has an address of 28.251, definitely somebody that's sitting on one of the computers in the lab will use 251 at some point or another. Okay, so our DNS server will stop working until we figure out who done it. All right, so it's good to have a backup because this happens every year and we can't avoid it. So, and search domain, we can have netlab.e.port.ac.uk. All right, so this is all now neat and tidy, and we hit save, and you can actually switch it on as well if you want at this point, and that's it. All right, so you're done. You begin installation, and you let it do whatever it is that it's doing. You need to create a root password. It needs to be localhost 1. It needs to be the same for everybody so that I can log in and help out. And it will not accept it if you click done. It will say it's too simple. But if you click done again and insist, it means you really want to have this as a password, so it will do it. And that's it. Okay. And user creation, create a user, name it do not use me. Give it whatever password you want, anything other than localhost 1, and then never use it. Okay. I will stop this now because it's wasting battery from my laptop and I don't want that. Alright, so this is what the installation steps entail. So there are a few details that you need to be very careful about. If you get any one of those details wrong, it might cost you some time later on in the semester. So be very careful with that. And once that's all done, then essentially you have built the host for which you can run all of the labs inside it. Once this virtual machine is built, I never want you to do anything whatsoever ever again on the host. All right, so at this point you will have opened the browser and you have gone into Moodle, gotten the lab sheet, hopefully opened a logbook and Google Docs, taken screenshots of the installation steps and everything else, and you have this open on your host. Once this machine is built, I want you to close all those windows. I want you to go inside your virtual machine, set it to full screen, and do the bonus round for this. The bonus round is for you to install Google Chrome onto your virtual machine. You'll need to do your research about this, into this. The virtual machine that you will install will have Firefox installed already. So Firefox's only purpose in life in this context is to help you install Google Chrome. Much like Internet Explorer's purpose in life is to help you install Google Chrome on Windows. Yeah. So use Firefox, find out how to install Google Chrome inside your Prometheus VM, and then once you do that, you will then need to figure out how to get it to run. Okay. The installation of the operating system shouldn't take you more than an hour, and the first lab session is 3 hours long. All the lab sessions are 3 hours long. All right. So essentially you have a couple of hours to figure out how to get Google Chrome to run. That, and get all of the screenshots that you need, set up your logbook, figure out how to take screenshots and how to put them into the logbook and everything. Basically, this week's session is for you to figure out how you want to work in the lab, how you want to set up everything, where you want to have like all of your windows in the desktop and everything else and so on. Okay, so it is only one task, which is installing the operating system, and now you will have this on a recorded video available to see whenever you like. Yeah. So the whole idea of the first week is to start you slow so that we get you used to working in the labs and figure out how everything actually works and how you want to configure your computer and work with it later on. Okay, so by the end of this lab sit, you should have your operating system installed. You should be able to ping Google, so have correct internet access on your machine. You should have the browser, and you should be able to run your browser as user root. Okay, because we said that, so Google Chrome will not run as root by default, because as we said in Linux, you should always log in with a normal user account and only elevate your privileges if you have to. All right, so that's why Google has taken this into consideration as well, and they won't run the browser as root, because it opens up the operating system to other vulnerabilities as well. Right, but there is a way around it. You need to figure it out, and you need to do it. Okay, we won't help you too much with this, but if by the end of the lab session you see that it's, I don't know, it's 11:30 or whatever, there's only half an hour left and you haven't managed to get Google Chrome to run, we'll help you with it. Okay, this doesn't mean finish everything within an hour and then come back after an hour and a half and we'll do it for you. You need to give it a try. All right, so that's it. This is what the first lab set is all about. So you need to install the operating system, figure out what sort of components you can edit and change in installation of CentOS. So we're not just doing this so that you have something to work with. We're doing this so that you can say that, you know, I know how to install Red Hat Linux on a computer. All right. And play around, take your time, make sure you take correct screenshots for everything. Make sure you put your screenshots in your logbook. All right, and make sure that you annotate your screenshots as well. So under each of the screenshots, say, you know, in this screenshot, I've done this for that reason. All right. I've chosen language English UK because I have a UK layout on my keyboard. All right, that's it. Any questions? Yes.
Is the labs, the time change, is it starting this week or next?
No. So when we finished now, and after I collect more names and numbers and stuff, I will go back into the lab where I have a lab session, and hopefully the students in that lab session won't ask me too many questions, and then my teaching assistants can sort everything out for me. And then I will sit down, make a list of who's moving where, send that list to central timetabling. They might do it today, they might do it later in the week. Either way, you need to come to the lab session that you want to be in. Okay, not to the lab session that is allocated to you now. All right, because once you sit on a computer and you start working on it, I will not move you. Okay, and because labs start this week, you need to come to the session that you want to be in. You need to come into the new session. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.